I can't believe I'm doing this.
You saw the title, you know what we're doing today. The only question is, why did you click? If you're anything like me, you probably grew up reading a book a day and fantasizing about the characters that you would meet and the magical creatures and writing your own little stories. You also probably watched Pirates of the Caribbean and Narnia and had just an unhealthy obsession with the 2003 Universal Studios classic Peter Pan, starring Jeremy Sumpter, Jason Isaacs, and Rachel Hurdwood, which is arguably the best adaptation of the Peter Pan book ever. You would watch that DVD on the TV that you bought with the years of birthday and Christmas money saved up every night for years. You'd watch it so often, in fact, that even now as a 25-year-old, you can quote practically the entire movie. And as Cinderella stepped from the carriage, she found herself most impertinently surrounded by pirates. This would leave you wanting to consume more and more fantasy books and TV shows and movies. More importantly, it would lead you to a little underground fantasy soap opera called Once Upon a Time that first aired in October of 2011. You would be nearly 13 years old when you first discovered this show, which some might argue is the target audience. You would then become completely obsessed with this character named Balefire, who is Rumpelstiltskin's son. I know. And you'd be absolutely enamored by his backstory as the lost boy who was left by his dad to be a prisoner on Neverland. You would become so obsessed, in fact, that you would go on to write a 33,000-word, 32-part fan fiction that is ranked number 52 in the Captain Hook subcategory to this day, with over 25,000 reads on Wattpad about this character, Balefire, a shameless self-insert, and, of course, Peter Pan. Now, I know what you're thinking, and no, you cannot still view this on Wattpad. I actually just unpublished it because while I am about to embarrass myself fully right now, I would still like to believe that I'm partially in control of my lasting legacy, so yeah. Now, I do also want to say this really quick. I did actually repick this story up as my November novel challenge, and I just have to say that I am having so much fun. It has honestly reminded me so much of why I enjoyed writing in the first place, and while the main character is no longer a self-insert and the love triangle is not a direct rip of Balefire and Peter Pan, it has still been so much fun. And I'm honestly really grateful and glad that I picked it back up again. And if it gets traditionally published in the future, then hey, I might just be lucky enough to go down in history as one of those authors who had their shameless fanfiction published alongside authors like E.L. James and Ali Hazelwood. Hey, I might even get a 5-movie deal and a restraining order from Harry Styles like Anna Todd. All jokes and stalling aside, let's get to the part that you actually came here for, which is chapter 1 of my Peter Pan fanfiction. This is also my application to be your audiobook narrator too, so just throwing that out there. Prove yourself. Oh God, here we go. It's not too late. You can just not publish this video. It's fine. Blood trickled down my temple as I lay propped up on my elbows on the floorboards of a deck. Sun bit at my eyes as I stared out at the black boots of a man towering above me. A sword was held to the tip of my chin, forcing me to stare into the eyes of my captors. A smirk was plastered across the face of this unknown man. Something about him intrigued me. He was young, maybe 28, and his face was welcoming but harsh. There was a small sense of vulnerability about him. You just had to get close enough to find it. His eyes were cold, as if his soul was trapped inside him, behind the bars of his own pain and misery. I longed to help him, then snapped back into the reality that I was forced into. A blade, ever so slightly pressed against my skin. Although I did not want to admit it, I was scared. Not of the blade or of death, but of the man. Even in the 90-degree heat, he wore a long black leather jacket that fell right above his knees. I traced the coat down to his hand that held the blade, which glared in the rays of the sun. In one hand, he held firmly the hilt of the sword, but the other hand was replaced by a silver-glinting, metallic object. A hook. My heart pounded in my ears for fear this man would take my life, as form of revenge for whatever terrible accident had happened in the past. I may not have been the smartest of girls, but I knew the look of revenge when I saw it, and his face was screaming for the life of another. I inhaled deeply, and shifted carefully as not to nick my throat. Now sitting on my knees, I chose my words carefully. "Who are you?" I called, hoping my words didn't falter as my courage had. The man above me laughed and pulled a sword up, forcing me to stand. I was smaller than him by a landslide, and I knew it wouldn't be wise to attack. I stood there as he still towered above me, and I held my breath waiting for a response. When none came, I repeated my inquiry. "Who are you?" I assumed I sounded a bit more demanding because the man acknowledged me. "Killian Jones," he smirked. There was a hint of cockiness in his voice. "Most people, however, address me by my more colourful moniker. Hook. Captain Hook." I could tell by the emphasis of captain he wasn't afraid of much, but then again I wasn't very much to be afraid of. He lowered his sword slightly and waited for my response. I smiled lightly and looked him in the eye. "Well, Captain Hook, is it? I'm afraid I won't be here for much longer. You see, I have places to go, things to steal. I wouldn't be much help to that of a band of pirates, now would I? You see, I steal for me, not for others to go around bargaining the value of precious lost items." This statement resulted in the laughter of the crew and the very pissed-off smirk of the captain. I liked this, insulting the captain with witty remarks. However, it wasn't so smart on my part, because before I had time to relish my small victory, I was being held against my will to the edge of the deck. Rope soon bound my wrists together, and a sword was placed against my heart. The only choice I had was to move backwards. "What are you doing, baby? Do you have anything to share?" Rope soon bound my wrists together, and a sword was placed against my heart. The only choice I had was to move backwards towards the ocean, which didn't look too pleasant. Shark's fins began to circle the area in which I was soon to fall, unless I said something before it was too late. "Wait!" I called. "If you do this, then you will regret it. I promise you that I am a far better swordsman than any of your crew members. Name one, and I will win a match. If I lose, you can personally take my life, rather than having fish do it for you." This seemed to catch the attention of the captain. "What happens if you win?" "Glad you asked, Captain." I smiled as I slipped the ropes off my wrists while still engaging the man. "If I win, then I will be guaranteed safe passage. If I win, then I will be guaranteed safe passage to any realm I choose." He nodded in agreement and had the man who pushed me to the plank remove his sword. I hopped down like a little girl and watched the bewildered faces of the men as I held my hands out in front of me and dropped the rope to the floorboards. Hook smirked, but I could tell he was impressed. He opened his arms, gesturing to his men. "Any of these men, you guarantee you can beat in a clash of swords?" "I guarantee it." I shot a sly smile. "I choose." He closed his eyes and pointed around the deck. When his finger stopped, the crowd slowly parted to reveal a boy about my age leaning up against the railing. His arms were crossed and his brown curly hair hung above his eyes. Hook removed his hand from his eyes and smiled when my competition was revealed. "Ah," he shot joyously. "Do come here, Bay." I interrupt this program to provide you with some OG comments. If you didn't know, on Wattpad you can actually comment on passages, and these are a few that showed up on this passage. Subject A said, "Bay," which Subject B responded, "Are you insulting Bay?" Subject C had to chime in and say, "I really don't want to do this, but Bay is kind of a girl's name. They must not have watched the show." But don't worry, because Bay's honor was reclaimed by Subject D, who said, "How dare you? Bay. What a curious name." I had to admit he wasn't bad looking, and the way he strolled down the deck was either confidence or cockiness. I smirked. "Him. He doesn't look like much of a fight." "Don't judge a sword by its blade," Hook scoffed. "This boy and I have fought many battles between many creatures whom you've never encountered." Please, just because he fought side by side doesn't mean he acquires the mental stability. My guess is that instead of fighting, he'd rather view his appearance in the reflection of his blade. This, as a 13-year-old, was one of the sickest burns. But, Dairy Cow didn't like it very much. The crew snickered as Bay spoke for the first time. "Was that a compliment?" His voice was deep and smooth, but not menacing. "Just because you're busy checking your appearance doesn't make it a good one." Guys, I was on fire, but, Subject E wrote, "Don't lie, you know he's fine." His mouth opened ever so slightly, as if he were going to say something, but stopped, and instead licked the tip of his perfectly straight teeth. His arms unfolded and his gaze turned from me to Hook. He nodded, and Hook threw him a sword. "Where's my weapon?" I pondered. "Here's the thing. Your weapon is actually his weapon as well. You said it yourself, love. He may acquire the agility, but you've got the brains. So let's just see how well they can do to protect you from my best swordsman." My eyebrows raised. He was looking for a battle, a good one. He somehow knew that I at least had a shot at taking down this Bay, so he wanted to make it as good a show as possible, for him and for his crew. So I smiled and walked towards this boy, who was a head taller than me. His light brown eyes were glinting in the sunlight, and the closer I got to him, the more I realized that there was just something about him that made me hate him so much. My smile slowly faded, and I stopped in my tracks as he took a step forward, and I took a step back. My thoughts were unfocused. He raised the sword, and I took a deep breath, focusing on what mattered at hand. His eyes searched mine, and I shot a smile before jabbing my foot into his toe and reaching for the sword before it hit the deck. But I wasn't quick enough. He kicked my wrist, and the hilt flew out of my hand and clattered to the deck far beyond where I could reach. I turned to him, a fire now lit in the pit of my stomach, anger rising in my throat. I held out the back of my hand and struck his face before he had time to react. I ran towards the sword and held it up, but when I turned, he was no longer there. It was as if he vanished. Then, something grabbed my waist from behind and pulled me back, knocking me off guard, resulting in the sword dropping out of my hands. I screamed in anger as his grip around my waist tightened, and I couldn't remove myself from his body. The looks from the crew just fueled my anger. Some were smiling at the situation, and others seemed to be happy at the thought that I was losing. But I was not losing. At least not yet. I stopped squirming, which made him lessen his grip a bit, thinking I had given up. But instead, I took the opportunity to break from his arms and lunge toward the sword. I managed to do a mid-air somersault, and when I landed, I had the blade aimed in his direction while on one knee. He put his hands up in a sense of giving up, but I had learned better than to trust when people said they were giving up, and when they actually were giving up. I stood up, with the blade as an extension of my arm, aimed at his heart. He kept taking steps backwards, but he never lost his smirk. He was watching me. He was anticipating my moves, so I would just have to do the unexpected, which just so happened to be what he was anticipating. So, instead of jabbing my sword into his heart, I pushed him up against the post and watched as he continued to determine what my next move was. I raised the sword to his throat and leaned in real close to his ear, so only he could hear what I had whispered next. "You lose." He smiled, and I felt his warm breath against my neck as his hand slowly raised up and trailed up my arm. Oh my god, I did not have a keen eye for repeated words back then, did I? If you took a shot every time I said the word up, you'd be drunk on that paragraph alone. Then I heard something hit his hand. I pushed away to reveal a smiling Bay, now armed. Plot twist. I sighed, ready for the new challenge. All right, maybe not yet. His blade instantly shot towards mine, and I deflected it easily. He took a step forward before lunging again, this time towards my face. I held my sword and blocked his attack. Then I clashed them together and swung mine in a fast clockwise motion, knocking his out of his hands. When he reached for it, however, I sliced his cheek and drew blood. He didn't give up, though. He stood and grabbed my blade with his bare hand, pushing it backwards into my face so I would drop it. Then he picked up his own sword and held an X to my throat. I smiled. I knew where this was going. He was going to say the infamous line, "Any last words?" before he sliced my head off. When that never came, I lifted one eyebrow in confusion. Sweat trickled down his forehead and his curly brown hair was plastered to his neck. As he stood there panting, I took the chance that he had given up and kicked his shins and then flipped position so now he had the blades held against his throat while against the railing. He smiled and whispered, "Well, I guess you win." The crew seemed shocked. Some even booed. Hook just stood there, arms crossed, with a look I couldn't decode. It was either impressed with me or shocked with Bay, or a little bit of both. It didn't matter, however, because I had won, and now I was a part of something. Thank you for coming to the show. I hope you had fun. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing, and if you didn't, well, the tickets are non-refundable, so... Jokes aside, I do think it is really important to occasionally pick up old works. And while this is me mostly poking fun at my old writing, I do also think that there are some redeemable qualities about this. Was it a shameless self-insert fanfiction? Yes, but it's also not terrible, maybe? Question mark. I think I did a lot of things well. For starters, I instantly throw us into the action. We're introduced to characters in a way that is appealing, and I think almost immediately we're kind of rooting for characters. We've got quippy banter, we've got immediate stakes, and while the characters are not fully fledged out in this opening scene, I do think that the building blocks are there. I also think it's an interesting premise to have our character immediately set in a place that they do not want to be, but for her to somehow leverage that situation. She's not necessarily scared of the prospect of being thrown overboard, which I definitely would have been. And instead she realizes that this captain and this crew could be used to her advantage to get her safe passage to where she wants to go. But she knows that these are the types of people who don't necessarily give in to requests, which is also kind of telling us a little bit about her character as well. And she knows that in order to get what she wants, or in order to have her request taken seriously, that she has to prove herself. Did I do a great job of showcasing all of that right away? I was 13. I also think it's really interesting to see that my style of writing hasn't necessarily changed much since when I was 13. I mean, I've definitely gotten better. I hope I've gotten better, but I guess you'll just have to be the judge of that when my book eventually comes out. But there are certain tropes that I still enjoy writing, and there are certain phrases that I still use. Even to this day, I didn't necessarily realize it, but there is a line that is pretty similar in my current project that was in this opening chapter of my fan fiction. It's that line in the opening where she says, "I may not be the smartest of girls," and it's just funny because my main character in the current project that I'm working on says that occasionally as sort of a self-deprecating joke between him and the journalist that he's interviewing with. And he just says, you know, "I may not be the smartest boy, or I may not be the smartest person you've ever met," and I just think that's really cool to see that that shows up. It's almost like my younger self is holding my hand and sort of writing this book with me, which is such a nod to my current fantasy project, Sir Calengray's Final Lament, which really is at its core a character study of childhood and how your actions can follow you into adulthood. And while this is a happier instance of this happening compared to Callan, who has a lot of traumatic things that are sort of surfacing in the book, I still think it's a really, really sweet idea that all of these versions of you are living together in tandem. And sometimes it's rare to notice them, and just when you do, it's an indescribable feeling. Alrighty, on that note, I do just want to say thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you had fun. As always, I'll have all of my links down in the description below. And since today was a day of being shameless, I will also plug my book cover designs over on Contra. If you have a book coming out that needs a cover, hire me. And if you have the means and would like to fuel my dream, I will also have the link to my Ko-fi in the description as well. I'm working on some pretty cool stuff in the future, more specifically design videos, and I'm hoping to branch into Substack, maybe Patreon. So let me know in the comments some things that you might be interested in reading about or seeing over on those platforms, and I will definitely take any and all recommendations and content ideas into consideration. Also, if you liked seeing me squirm and be embarrassed, this is, like I said, a 33-part series, so I will do it again if you want, if that's something you really want. But on that note, I will see you all in the next one. Happy writing.